The ballroom doors struck the walls hard enough to stop the string quartet mid-note. 50 Marines walked into my sister's wedding reception in dress blues. No one spoke. I was standing near the service corridor in the plain navy dress my sister had chosen for me, after saying my uniform would turn her wedding into a military parade. Across the room, she lowered her champagne glass, her smile frozen beneath the crystal lights. The Marines formed two silent lines. Then an older man with silver stars on his shoulders stepped forward. Brigadier General Thomas Hale had once commanded men whose names my family had never heard. He looked directly at me. "Atlas," he said. That single word pulled me back to a night I had spent 10 years trying to forget. Every Marine in the ballroom came to attention. My sister stared at them, then at me. "What did he call you?" Before I could answer, the general raised his hand and saluted. 3 weeks earlier, my sister Claire called while I was standing in the frozen food aisle of a grocery store outside Fredericksburg, Virginia. "Mara, I need to ask you something." Her voice had that careful softness people use when they have already decided the answer for you. Claire was 34, 6 years younger than me, and getting married at a waterfront hotel in Beaufort, South Carolina. She had spent 14 months planning ivory roses, gold-rimmed plates, and the exact shade of blue the bridesmaids were allowed to wear. I was not a bridesmaid. Claire said it was because I lived too far away to help. We both knew that was not the reason. "What do you need?" I asked. "Please don't wear your uniform." A freezer motor hummed behind me. I looked down at the basket in my hand. Coffee, bread, a frozen dinner I would probably forget to eat. I wasn't planning to. She exhaled, relieved. "It's just that Nathan's family is very traditional. And you know how people get around uniforms. They ask questions. They make everything about service and sacrifice." I almost smiled at the word sacrifice. Claire had never asked me about mine. "I have a navy dress," I said. "The one with sleeves?" "Yes." "Perfect." Then she laughed lightly. "I just want you to look like my sister for one day. Not like, whatever you are at work." "Whatever you are." I let the sentence pass. That had become a habit in our family. By the time I arrived in Beaufort on Friday afternoon, the air smelled of salt, marsh grass, and charcoal from a restaurant across the harbor. White ribbons moved in the wind along the hotel terrace. Inside, staff rolled tables beneath chandeliers while Claire directed them with a clipboard pressed against her chest. She looked beautiful. She also looked at my garment bag before she looked at me. "You brought the dress?" "I brought the dress." Her shoulders relaxed. Nathan, her fiancé, crossed the lobby and hugged me. He was kind, nervous, and completely unaware that Claire had called twice more to confirm I would not change my mind. Behind him stood his best man, Daniel Mercer. Daniel was in his early 40s, broad-shouldered, with the stillness of someone who had once been trained to notice exits before faces. His eyes dropped briefly to the small bronze pin on my travel bag. It was shaped like a mountain beneath a single wing. Most people assumed it was decorative. Daniel did not. His expression changed for less than a second. "Where did you get that?" he asked. Claire answered before I could. "She collects old military things." I looked at Daniel. He looked back at me. Then Claire hooked her arm through mine and pulled me toward the elevators. "Come on," she said. "I need to show you where you'll be sitting." My place card was at the last table beside the service doors, and beneath my name, someone had written 3 words in pencil: "No military introductions." I joined the Marine Corps at 22 because I thought discipline could turn fear into something useful. For a while, it did. I learned to wake before dawn, make decisions with incomplete information, and keep my voice steady when everyone around me needed one person not to panic. I learned that courage rarely looked the way civilians imagined it. Sometimes it was loud. Most of the time, it was a tired person doing the next necessary thing. Claire was 12 when I left home. Our father had already moved to Arizona with a woman none of us had met. Our mother worked double shifts at a medical billing office and came home with red marks on the bridge of her nose from cheap reading glasses. So before I became a Marine, I had been the person who signed Claire's school forms, fixed the kitchen faucet, and waited in the parking lot after her dance lessons. She used to call me when thunderstorms shook the windows. I would sit on the edge of her bed and count the seconds between lightning and thunder. 5 seconds means it's a mile away, I told her. I had no idea whether that was exactly true. It made her feel safe. That was enough. When I left for officer candidate school, Claire cried into my sweatshirt and made me promise I would never become one of those people who came home different. I promised. At 22, I believed promises could protect people from change. By 30, I had learned otherwise. My family knew I flew helicopters. They knew I had deployed overseas. They knew I stopped talking about it. That was the full extent of what they understood. 10 years before Claire's wedding, I had been the aircraft commander on a recovery mission in eastern Afghanistan. A Marine position had been cut off after a storm closed the main route through the mountains. Their supplies were running low. Several men were injured. Weather reports said the cloud ceiling was too low to fly safely. The reports were correct. We went anyway. Not because I was fearless, because 57 Marines were waiting beneath those clouds. The mission lasted 11 hours. My family later saw a photograph of me shaking hands with a general on a runway. Claire shared it on social media with the caption, "My sister doing important helicopter stuff." She never asked what happened before the photograph. She never knew that one aircraft did not return with us. She did not know I could still remember the empty chair in the briefing room afterward. 4 names had been written on the whiteboard that morning. By nightfall, no one could bring themselves to erase them. The Corps called the operation successful because we brought 53 people out. My mind counted the 4 we did not. Afterward, officers used words like leadership, judgment, and extraordinary courage. I stood through the ceremony, accepted what they placed in my hand, and wished everyone would stop looking at me. The men from that mountain began calling me Atlas. I never liked it. Atlas carried the world. I had spent 10 years remembering what I dropped. A shoulder injury eventually ended my time in the cockpit. I transferred to Quantico, where I helped develop aviation recovery procedures and trained younger officers to recognize the mistakes I had learned at a cost I could not forget. To Claire, it meant I worked at a desk. I let her believe that. A desk was easier to explain than the reason I still checked cloud ceilings before driving anywhere. It was easier than admitting I sometimes woke with my hand reaching for controls that were no longer there. And it was much easier than telling my little sister that the person who once counted thunder for her had become afraid of certain kinds of rain. The rehearsal dinner was held Friday evening on the hotel terrace. Heat lamps glowed above linen-covered tables. Shrimp and grits steamed in white bowls. Beyond the railing, sailboats moved slowly through the darkening harbor. Claire had arranged the seating so I was beside Aunt Linda, who wore too much gardenia perfume and believed every silence was an invitation. "So Mara," she said, touching my wrist, "are you still doing paperwork for the military?" "I'm still serving. But you don't fly anymore." "No." She nodded sympathetically. That must be difficult, going from something exciting to an office. Across the table, Claire smiled into her wine. "Mara likes the office," she said. "No one shoots at spreadsheets." Several people laughed. I picked up my water glass. Nathan looked uncomfortable. "Claire," he said quietly. "What?" She widened her eyes. "She knows I'm joking." That was Claire's favorite shield. I'm joking. She used it whenever she wanted the freedom to wound someone without accepting responsibility for the cut. Daniel Mercer sat 2 places away. He had not taken his eyes off the bronze pin attached to my handbag. During dessert, he moved into the empty chair beside me. "That insignia," he said. "Was it from Ridgeline?" The spoon stopped halfway to my mouth. Ridgeline had never appeared in public reports. It was the unofficial name the crews gave the mission because the real designation was classified at the time. "Where did you hear that name?" Daniel's face tightened. I was on the ground. The terrace sounds seemed to move farther away. Silverware. Laughter. A boat horn somewhere beyond the harbor. Daniel lowered his voice. "Third Squad, Echo Company." I was the last group lifted out. I looked at him more carefully. 10 years had broadened his face and threaded gray through his hair, but I remembered a younger man standing beneath a helicopter's cabin light, one arm around another Marine, refusing to board until 2 injured men went ahead of him. "Mercer," I said. His eyes changed. "You remember me? You gave up your seat twice." He stared down at the table. "My brother was on your 2nd aircraft." I knew what came next before he said it. Corporal Evan Mercer. The name struck the same locked place inside me it had occupied for 10 years. "I'm sorry," I said. Daniel shook his head. "You went back for him." "We didn't bring him home. You went back when everyone told you not to." The old pressure tightened beneath my ribs. Before I could answer, Claire appeared beside us. "There you are," she said. "Daniel, I need the best man for photographs." He stood, but his attention remained on me. "Does General Hale know you're here?" My hand closed around the pin. "No. You should come to the Atlantic Ballroom tomorrow. The Wings Heritage Dinner is here this weekend. Hale is the guest speaker. I saw the sign in the lobby. You know half the people in that room. That's why I won't be going. Daniel studied me, then nodded once. He understood more from that answer than my family had understood in a decade. Claire did not. As he walked away, she leaned closer. What was that about? He served. With you? Near me. She glanced toward Daniel as if his recognition were an inconvenience. Please don't turn tomorrow into a reunion. I won't. I mean it, Mara. This weekend is about me and Nathan. I know. She folded her arms. And the garment bag in your room? I looked at her. What about it? I saw the uniform. The uniform was for a memorial service at Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort on Sunday morning. Once each year, the families of the 4 crew members gathered beside a small stone marker near the squadron hangar. I had missed the previous ceremony because I had been recovering from shoulder surgery. I would not miss this one. It isn't for your wedding, I said. Then why bring it to the wedding hotel? Because I have somewhere to be Sunday. Claire's mouth tightened. You could have stayed somewhere else. The words were soft. That made them land harder. I'm your sister, I said. And I want you here. I just don't want the uniform here. It's hanging inside a closed closet. You know what I mean. I did. She did not want any reminder that there were parts of my life she could not control by assigning a seat or choosing a dress. I won't wear it tomorrow, I said. Claire gave me a long look. Then she smiled. Good, I knew you'd understand. The next morning, I discovered the garment bag was gone. In its place, a hotel claim ticket rested on the desk. I called the front desk. A young woman answered. Your sister asked us to secure the item until after the reception, she explained. She said it was causing concern. It was inside my closet. There was a pause. I'm sorry, ma'am. I can have the manager return it. I looked at the clock. Claire's hair appointment had started 20 minutes earlier. Our mother was already downstairs. The photographer was due at noon. I imagined walking into the bridal suite holding the garment bag. Claire would cry. Our mother would ask why I could not let one day be peaceful. Somehow, my response to the insult would become the real offense. Keep it secured, I said. I'll collect it tonight. When I hung up, I noticed the curtains had changed. Housekeeping had opened them while I was at breakfast. Across the courtyard, through the tall windows of the Atlantic Ballroom, rows of dress blue uniforms moved beneath chandeliers. Staff were preparing tables for the Marine Aviation dinner. At the entrance stood a large framed photograph of Brigadier General Thomas Hale. 10 years earlier, he had been the colonel who ordered me to turn back when the weather closed over the ridge. He had also been the man who authorized my final attempt after I told him there were still Marines on the ground. I closed the curtain. Then I put on the navy dress Claire had approved. The wedding ceremony was beautiful. Claire walked beneath an arch of ivory roses while sunlight moved across the water behind her. Nathan's hands trembled as he placed the ring on her finger. For 40 minutes, everyone behaved as though love had made us gentle. Afterward, the photographer arranged the family on the hotel lawn. Bride's immediate family, he called. I stepped toward Claire. She glanced at my dress, then at the camera. Let's do mom first. I stopped. The photographer shifted awkwardly. Claire took several photographs with our mother, then with Nathan's parents, then with cousins she had not spoken to in years. By the time she waved me forward, the light had changed. We only have a minute, she said. In the photograph, she held my arm as if we were close. As soon as the shutter clicked, she let go. At the reception, my place card was still beside the service doors. Each time a server entered, cold air brushed the back of my chair. Daniel sat at the head table. Twice, I caught him looking toward me. The second time, he picked up his phone and walked into the hallway. I assumed Nathan needed something. I was wrong. Dinner passed through speeches and champagne toasts. Nathan's father spoke about commitment. Our mother spoke about Claire's kindness. Then Claire stood. She thanked the guests, the hotel staff, the florist, and Nathan for giving her the kind of family that shows up. That phrase made Aunt Linda glance in my direction. Claire noticed. She had been drinking, but not enough to excuse what happened next. And I want to thank my sister, Mara, she said into the microphone. Every face turned toward the table by the service doors. She came all the way from Virginia, even though I made her leave the costume upstairs. A few guests laughed uncertainly. My mother stared at her plate. Claire continued. Mara has always loved making an entrance. Military titles, medals, all that serious stuff. Claire, Nathan said. She lifted one finger. I'm complimenting her. Then she looked directly at me. For those of you wondering, she isn't some secret war hero. She works behind a desk. But she still travels with the uniform in case someone forgets to be impressed. The laughter disappeared. My fingers rested flat against the tablecloth. I could have corrected her. I could have listed assignments, ranks, citations, names. That was what she expected. She wanted me angry, because anger would make us equal participants in the humiliation. So I asked one question. Why did you have hotel staff remove it from my room? Claire's smile flickered. I was protecting my wedding. From a closed garment bag? Nathan turned toward her. You went into Mara's room? Claire ignored him. You always do this, she said. Her voice was louder now. You sit there acting calm so everyone thinks you're better than us. I don't think that. You don't have to say it. You make people feel it. She gestured toward me with her champagne glass. Daniel recognized one little pin, and suddenly you two were whispering like you shared some great secret. I saw Daniel re-enter the ballroom behind her. He was not alone. Claire kept speaking. I'm tired of everyone treating silence like it means depth. Sometimes silence just means there's nothing worth saying. Behind Daniel, the ballroom doors began to open. A line of dark blue uniforms filled the hallway. Claire noticed the guests looking past her. She turned slowly. The doors struck the walls, and 50 Marines walked into the reception. The first Marine stopped 3 steps inside the ballroom. The others entered behind him in 2 measured lines, dress blue coats sharp beneath the chandeliers. They had come from the Aviation Heritage Dinner across the courtyard. Some were young enough that I had trained them at Quantico. Others were old enough to remember the mountain. Claire still held the microphone. This is a private reception, she said. No one answered her. Then Brigadier General Thomas Hale walked through the doors. A single silver star rested on each shoulder. His hair had gone white since the last time I had seen him, but he still moved with the same deliberate calm he had carried into every briefing. Daniel followed several feet behind him. He was still wearing his wedding tuxedo. That was when I understood. He had gone across the courtyard. He had told Hale I was there. The general scanned the tables until he found me beside the service corridor. For a moment, the years between us disappeared. I was 30 again, standing in a wet flight suit beneath fluorescent lights while 4 names remained on a whiteboard behind him. Hale's expression changed. Atlas, he said. Every Marine in the ballroom came to attention. Claire turned toward me. What did he call you? I pushed my chair back and stood. General Hale walked between the tables. Guests moved their glasses and purses out of his path without being asked. When he reached me, he stopped. Then he raised his hand and saluted. It was not required indoors. I was not in uniform. The gesture belonged less to regulation than to memory. I returned it. Behind him, 50 Marines remained motionless. Claire lowered the microphone. General, I said, you didn't need to do this. Yes, Hale replied. I did. His eyes moved briefly toward Claire. She looked smaller, without the confidence of the microphone near her mouth. Hale faced the guests. For anyone who was given the wrong impression, this is Lieutenant Colonel Mara Vance, United States Marine Corps. A murmur passed through the tables. Aunt Linda's hand rose to her necklace. My mother finally looked at me. Claire stared at the plain navy dress she had chosen, as if rank should have been visible through the fabric. Hale continued. Lieutenant Colonel Vance does not collect military objects. The insignia on her bag belonged to Marine Aviation Recovery Group Atlas. Daniel stepped beside him. Ridgeline, he said quietly. Several of the older Marines shifted at the name. Claire looked between them. What is Ridgeline? No one answered immediately. General Hale's attention returned to me. I shook my head once. He understood what I was asking. Do not make this larger than it already is. But Hale had spent 10 years honoring my silence. He was finished helping me hide inside it. Ridgeline was a recovery operation conducted during severe weather conditions 10 years ago, he said. A Marine position had been cut off in the mountains. 57 personnel were awaiting extraction. Claire frowned. Mara said she flew helicopters. She did. I mean, she never said, no, Hale said. She rarely does. His voice was not cruel. That made the correction harder to resist. Captain Vance commanded the lead aircraft. When deteriorating weather forced the initial flight to turn back, she identified a narrow approach through the eastern ridge. I remembered the map trembling beneath my gloved hand. Not from fear. From the rotor vibration moving through the aircraft. She made 3 approaches, Hale continued. Her crew helped recover 53 Marines, including several who would not have survived the night. A man near the ballroom doors raised his hand slightly. Then another. I recognized only fragments of their younger faces. One had carried an injured Marine across his shoulders. One had wrapped a strip of cloth around his own hand and kept directing people toward the aircraft. One had been unconscious when we lifted him aboard. They had built lives during the years I had spent remembering them only as names on a manifest. Claire's eyes moved across the formation. All of them came here because of her? Some were on that ridge, Daniel said. Some were trained by her afterward. The rest came because when General Hale said Atlas was sitting alone beside a service door, no one wanted her to stay there. Claire looked down at my place card. For the first time, she seemed to notice where she had seated me. Then she reached for the explanation that had protected her all evening. I was joking. No one laughed. I didn't know, she said. Hale's jaw tightened. You knew enough to call her uniform a costume. Claire's face hardened. This is still my wedding. You can't come in here and make it about her. Ma'am, Hale said, your sister has spent the entire day trying not to let that happen. Nathan rose from the head table. He did not approach Claire. He stood beside his father, looking at his new wife, as though he had discovered a door in a familiar house that had always been locked. Claire turned to me. Why didn't you tell me? I could hear the old answer waiting inside her question. Why didn't you give me information that would have made me treat you better? You never asked, I said. I asked about your job. You asked whether I still did paperwork. That's not fair. No, I said. It wasn't. Her fingers tightened around the microphone. You let me stand here and embarrass myself. I asked you to stop. You could have corrected me. I could have. Then why didn't you? The Marines behind Hale remained at attention. The string quartet sat with their bows lowered. Somewhere in the service corridor, a cartwheel squeaked and stopped. Because I wanted to know whether you would stop without being impressed, I said. Claire's mouth opened. Nothing came out. That was the moment she lost control of the room. Not when the Marines entered. Not when Hale saluted. When she understood that rank had not exposed me. Her behavior had exposed her. General Hale turned back toward me. There is another part, he said. I knew what he meant. No, Mara. Please. Daniel stepped forward. My brother was on the second aircraft. Claire glanced at him. The remaining guests did not move. Corporal Evan Mercer, Daniel said. He was one of the 4 crew members who didn't return. My mother covered her mouth. Claire looked at me again, but the anger had left her face. I had never told them about the second aircraft. Never explained that after I found the eastern approach, I had argued for one final attempt. Hale had authorized it. 2 helicopters entered the corridor. Only mine came out. I gave the order, Hale said. I found the route. The decision was mine. They followed my aircraft. And 53 Marines survived because you did your job. 4 did not. My voice sounded calm. It had taken years to make those words sound calm. Daniel came closer. My family never blamed you. I did. He nodded as though he had expected that answer. I know. Hale removed a folded sheet of paper from inside his coat. It was not an award citation. It was a page from the revised Aviation Recovery Manual. My name appeared in small print beneath the heading. Lieutenant Colonel Vance spent the next decade rewriting the procedures that failed us that night, he said. Every recovery pilot in this formation has trained under standards she helped create. A young captain near the back spoke for the first time. Those procedures brought my crew home last year, ma'am. Another Marine nodded. Then another. No applause followed. I was grateful for that. Applause would have made the moment feel like victory. It was not. It was 50 people standing inside the part of my life I had kept locked away, refusing to let me carry it alone. Daniel looked at the bronze pin on my handbag. Atlas was never the name of someone who carried the whole world, he said. I met his eyes. It was the name we gave the person who showed us the way through. For 10 years, I had remembered only the aircraft that did not return. Standing beside the service doors at my sister's wedding, I finally allowed myself to look at the people who had. No one knew what to do after that. The Marines remained standing until General Hale gave a small nod. Then the formation relaxed, though no one returned immediately to the ballroom across the courtyard. Claire placed the microphone on the table. Her hand shook hard enough to make it roll against a champagne glass. I need some air, she said. Nathan did not follow her. That seemed to frighten her more than anything else had. She looked at him from across the head table. Nathan? He lowered his eyes. We'll talk later. Claire waited for someone to defend her. Our mother stayed seated. Aunt Linda stared at the untouched cake. The guests who had laughed at Claire's first joke now found reasons to study their napkins. I did not enjoy any of it. Humiliation does not become justice simply because it happens to the person who started it. General, I said, the heritage dinner is waiting for you. Hale glanced toward the open doors. They can wait. No, they shouldn't. He studied me for a moment, then accepted the boundary. The Marines began filing out in the same quiet order in which they had entered. A few nodded to me as they passed. One man paused. He was older now, with a wedding ring and deep lines beside his eyes. You carried me on the third flight, he said. I remember. My daughter starts college in August. I looked at him. There were dozens of things I could have said. I chose the simplest. I'm glad. He pressed his lips together and nodded before walking away. Daniel remained behind. So does this mean you'll come across the courtyard? He asked. I looked toward the Atlantic ballroom, where gold light spilled into the hall. No. His disappointment lasted only a second. Then he understood. The evening had already opened enough doors. I'll see you tomorrow, he said, at the memorial. He nodded. General Hale was the last to leave. Before he turned away, he placed the folded recovery manual on the table beside my name card. You don't have to keep proving you can carry this alone, he said. I know. It was the first time I had said that and meant it. I found Claire on the terrace. She stood beside the railing with both arms folded tightly across her dress. Beyond her, the harbor was black except for narrow lines of reflected light. I suppose you're happy, she said. No. She turned. You got what you wanted. I wanted to attend my sister's wedding. You wanted everyone to see me as a terrible person. I spent all day helping them see you the way you wanted to be seen. Her face tightened. That's cruel. It's true. She looked toward the ballroom. Nathan won't even talk to me. He probably needs time. And Mom just sat there. Mom has spent years asking me to keep the peace. Claire laughed once, without humor. You always make yourself the martyr. There it was again. The old reflex. If my pain made her uncomfortable, then my pain had to be performance. I rested my hands on the railing. I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me. Then what do you want? I want you to stop punishing me for having a life you don't understand. I didn't punish you. You had my uniform removed from my hotel room. It was one day. You seated me beside a service door. It was a full wedding. You called my uniform a costume in front of a room full of people. She looked away. I said I was joking. I know. The wind pulled a strand of hair loose across her face. For the first time that evening, she looked less like a bride and more like the girl who once waited for me to count thunder. I didn't know any of that, she said. You did not need to know any of it to treat me with respect. That was the truth beneath everything. Not Atlas. Not the general. Not 50 Marines. If a rank was required before kindness, then it was never kindness. Claire's eyes filled, but I did not move toward her. For most of my life, tears had been the moment I surrendered every boundary. I would apologize. I would soften the facts. I would help the person who hurt me feel less guilty about it. That night, I let her feelings belong to her. Are you leaving? She asked. Yes. You're going to ruin the rest of my wedding? I'm leaving so I don't. Her mouth trembled. Will you come back tomorrow? I have a memorial in the morning. And after that? I don't know. It was not punishment. It was the first honest answer I had given her in years. I collected my uniform from the hotel manager. The garment bag had been placed in a storage room beside boxes of spare linens and folded banquet chairs. The manager apologized 3 times. I told her once was enough. Upstairs, I changed out of the navy dress and hung it carefully in the closet. Then I placed the bronze Atlas pin on the desk. For years, I had kept it hidden in drawers, attached only to bags where few people would notice it. That night, I left it where I could see it. The memorial began at 8 the next morning. The airfield was quiet beneath a pale Carolina sky. 4 families stood beside the stone marker near the old squadron hangar. Daniel came with his mother. General Hale wore his uniform. So did I. No one saluted when I arrived. No one needed to. We read 4 names. We placed 4 white roses. When Evan Mercer's mother reached me, she held both my hands. You brought Daniel home, she said. I looked toward him. He stood several feet away, watching us. I couldn't bring Evan. No, she said. But you came back and tried. For 10 years, I had believed trying was the weakest word in the English language. That morning, it sounded different. Not like an excuse. Like a fact. Claire and I did not speak for 4 months. She wrote twice. The first letter explained why she had been stressed. I did not answer. The second contained no explanations. She wrote that she had confused my quietness with judgment because it was easier than admitting she felt abandoned when I left home. She said she had spent years resenting the uniform because it represented the first thing in my life that had not belonged to her. I read the letter 3 times. Then I called. We did not repair everything. We began with 20 minutes. No excuse. No jokes. No demands that forgiveness erase memory. Nathan stayed married to her, but only after they began counseling. Our mother stopped asking me to be the bigger person whenever Claire crossed a line, and I stopped mistaking endurance for love. A year later, I left active duty and began teaching aviation safety full-time near Quantico. On rainy mornings, I still checked the clouds. Sometimes my shoulder ached. Sometimes 4 names returned before sleep. But now, once a month, I met Daniel and several Ridgeline Marines for breakfast at a small diner off Route 1. We talked about ordinary things: college tuition, bad coffee, knee pain, children learning to drive. The first time Claire joined us, she did not ask anyone to tell her what I had done. She simply sat beside me and listened. Outside, rain tapped softly against the diner windows. I counted the seconds between lightning and thunder. Then I stopped. I was no longer waiting to learn how close the storm was. I already knew I had survived it. For years, I believed strength meant absorbing every blow without letting anyone see it land. I thought silence made me disciplined. I thought endurance made me loyal. And I thought keeping the peace meant making myself smaller whenever someone else felt threatened by the truth of who I was. I was wrong. Silence can be strength. But silence without boundaries becomes permission. Forgiveness can be real. But forgiveness does not require returning to the same place where you were diminished. My sister did not need to know my rank, my missions, or the name Atlas in order to respect me. None of those things created my value. They only revealed what had always been there. The 50 Marines did not give me dignity when they entered that ballroom. They witnessed it. There is a difference. I no longer keep the bronze pin hidden in a drawer. It rests beside an old photograph on my desk, not as proof of who I was, but as a reminder of what I finally learned. Peace begins when you stop asking permission to take up your own space. Outside my office window, helicopters sometimes cross the Virginia sky. I still look up, but I no longer count only the ones that did not come home. If this story touched something in you, I hope you remember this. You should never have to prove your pain, your sacrifice, or your worth before someone decides to treat you with respect. Quiet strength is still strength, and setting a boundary does not make you cold. Sometimes it is the first honest act of love you offer yourself. Share this story with someone who has spent too long shrinking to keep the peace. They may need the reminder that being unseen does not mean being without value. Thank you for spending this time with me.